It's time for Market Explainer, your number one business news podcast. Hosted by Danny and the big man. And it starts right now.
We're going to jump into this next story, but we want to let you know, as you know, you can hit us up on patreon.com/market explainer. We have free exclusives on our Patreon. So you can hit us up over there and check some of those free exclusives out. Okay, so Carvana, which is the super, and I'm just talking about stories that have been reported. I don't have any experience with this company. They build these attraction grade car vending machines. Okay.
Yep, there's one in South Austin.
Yep, and I so infrequently go to South Austin. The only time I saw it was when I was coming back from San Antonio, and I didn't notice that the GPS routed me up 35 because I usually take the tollway so I can go 85 miles an hour like a boss. Because I'm a North Austin guy for life. But yeah, so that's the only time. And I saw this glowing behemoth on, because it's a southbound side, and I see this thing, and I'm just like, what is that?
Yeah, and they brighten those lights up at night. It's like a pet spectacle, even though I've never seen anybody using it. Never, but
it's like when I said it's an attraction, it is a destination thing. I can imagine when I was younger, my parents didn't have money. They still live like they don't have money, which is irritating sometimes. Just put your food in glassware. You don't have to use old yogurt containers. Okay. So I could just imagine, because I was such a car nerd as a kid. And, my mom was in graduate school. And so my dad would, have to look after us on the weekend. And, the only thing I cared about was I want to go look at cars. So we would go to a car dealership and just look at the cars. And my father is amazing at saying no. This guy doesn't want to buy anything. 2 years ago, he walked into a car dealership to buy a car and still said, I'm not interested. I was like, no, but you are.
That is wonderful.
You actually have to buy a car today because you need a car. And he goes, oh, I forgot. So
I love and respect your father, but even more so now.
Yes, of course. So I could imagine him not wanting to spend any money. It's not going to take me to a movie theater or buy me a pizza, right?
Right.
I could see him taking me to a Carvana and me just going, look at the Pontiac Grand
and taking a picture, and you know what I mean?
If this was happening now, he would take me there, and we would take pictures. But he wouldn't in the modern era. If he didn't have money, he wouldn't have a cell phone. So that would be a $35 a month thing he would just avoid. But
right.
So,
but the actual story is Carvana is acquiring
Odessa.
Yeah.
So in the wide wacky world of used cars, and there's a reason used car dealers have a certain reputation, right? And I happen to do marketing for a small used car dealership back in my hometown. And I can tell you that some of it is just unwarranted and some of it is absolutely warranted. But, as we all know, there's a chip shortage. There's, everybody is, we have EVs looming in the horizon. So Carvana has had some issues in the past couple of years where people aren't getting titles. They have issues sorting out different things because the way Carvana will set up a business, they're 50-state company, but they'll hire a smaller dealership to run their title operation, and they make money just doing titles.
They're a nationwide company that is trying to run locally, and that causes problems when you're dealing with different state laws, even different city laws and rules and registrations and whatever. So you and I did a story a couple of months back of some of the problems that Tesla was doing, having to ship stuff out of state because of the direct model. These are all things that encompasses car companies like Carvana, Tesla, and these other kind of disruptors or trying to disrupt an industry. And what it really boils down to, and this is kind of Carvana's step in this direction by buying a auction-based
House.
used car house is it gives them more of a traditional setup model
Right.
and
So
lots to run these places out of.
they're, you know, car vending machines. They're not a traditional car lot. There isn't a service bay. There isn't all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the cars have to get prepped and shipped and all this other stuff. And it takes, like, we were just saying in the last story, with cars, you gotta put them on a truck and they gotta go,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a pain in the neck. So what this allows them to do is this gives them a handful of bases of operation where, because Odessa is a old established business with trade lines, with a name that people like in the car business recognize.
It's a
With
wholesale auction
Yeah, auction
for
house.
used cars. The
Yeah,
Odessa sells to car
only
lots all
dealers.
across the,
Yeah,
dealers all across the country, in lots of
right.
50,
So
hundreds of cars.
right. So here's what's going to happen. Right, Carvana now immediately lowers their prices to buy a car. So this is what's called in every industry vertical integration.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the supply chain, and you go, now we own it, right?
Right.
So we're over here, and we got to do this and this, but now we're putting all of this. It's integrated vertically. So the reason I found this story interesting was simply because I, when I was in college, worked for a large rental car company, and everybody who worked there was in two groups of there was two groups of people who worked at this company. I worked in their logistics department, but they had drivers, and the driver
Mm-hmm.
department consisted of two groups of people. People who were in a special government program where the government paid their wages because they were, for a handful of reasons, and I'm not judging, I'm just saying that's where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
And the other group of people were retirees. This is
Sure.
a fascinating mix of people to put together in a room. It's a reality show worthy thing.
Sure. For 8 hours a day,
So,
40 hours a week. Sure.
yes. So on a day where there's no shipments coming in, we have no trucks expected, and we have to run a bunch of cars, I would hop in with the drivers for the goof because it was funny.
Right.
I hopped in and it was three big, they called them 15 passenger vans, and we would run out to the Odessa auction, which is north of the Twin Cities by a ways. So this is out in the country,
Mm-hmm.
basically, because it's a huge auction house. This is the only place you can put something that can hold all these cars. And one of the young women who was in this special government program propositioned me for a sum of money that I thought was very affordable, but also made me barf because that. So it just brought back this memory. But Carvana is buying this business for $2.2 billion.
Okay. So let's start with the good, and I'm going to
Okay.
completely forget what you just said and eliminate it from my memory.
Yeah.
But look, let's start with the good here. The good is
They're trying to
Carvana.
legitimize their business.
Carvana gets 56 physical sites around the nation.
Right. Which
Right?
is
They
a
get
lot.
56 places where they can store, make ready,
Yes.
buff out, clean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, ship. They get 56 different places around the nation that they can go, hey, chances are a truck's going to get sold in Texas. Let's send all those down to Texas or Oklahoma
right.
or wherever the closest
Whatever.
one is, so that when they are bought, they have a shorter span to ship,
Now,
right?
see, why would you say that? Why do you got to be so woke? We all know people in Oklahoma don't drive cars. They still ride in buggies with horses, okay?
Whatever. I'm saying stored in Oklahoma. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
They got the land, all right? That's all I'm saying.
So for reference, Carvana owns 30 of these multi-story car vending machines across the country, which is wild. And they own
Sure.
15 inspection and recondition centers. So when we look at the math there, they've over doubled their inspection and
by
capacity.
450%, right?
Right.
Like that they went from 15 to 60, essentially 61
Yeah. They're
overnight
adding-
in this acquisition. Now, that's the good. Now
Yeah.
let's talk about the bad. When I
Right.
say bad, y'all know me, I'm an investor. Okay,
Yeah.
I look at every business as either a way to make money or lose money. Which is it going to be, right?
Right.
Now let's talk about the bad in this scenario. Okay,
Okay.
Danny mentioned that they bought this company for $2.2 billion in cash.
Correct.
Now
Yes.
where did
Wait,
Carvana
it
get
was
that
cash? It was
cash?
a cash
Yeah,
deal?
cash.
Okay.
Where did Carvana get this cash? They borrowed it
Oh yeah. What's
from
the big deal?
100% of it,
Yeah.
100% of it from Chase Bank that just gave them $3.2 billion. 2.2 is going to for this acquisition. The other
Right.
$1 billion is slated to essentially do to these locations what they think they need to do, right? To
Right.
get them ready to service vehicles in the way they want to,
Right.
yada yada yada. But here's the deal. So not only did they just acquire somebody using someone else's money,
Right.
by all of it,
Yeah.
and then now they're using the rest of the money to acquire. Because here's the deal: Carvana has never been and is still not a profitable company.
Okay. So here's what the problem I have with what you're saying. Listen, can you name another time in history where people leverage themselves to the hills to buy assets where it's never worked out? It's never happened.
It's happened. It happens over and over again, Danny.
I know.
It's called the dot-com bubble in the
Yeah, yeah,
'90s. It was
yeah,
called the housing crunch, and
yeah,
the. Okay,
yeah.
so it's happened over and over again.
I know,
Look,
but I'm just saying you're wrong because you're hurting my feelings by saying this. No, listen, I agree
$200
with what you.
million in the fourth quarter loan. They
Right,
lost Carvana $200 million in the fourth quarter alone last year.
right. So the Federal Reserve printed something like $8 trillion, I think, in the last couple of years. Where the bank, those dollars, which are not physically printed, end up on the books of banks like uh, Chase. Chase has a very cozy relationship with.
Sure.
Yeah. So, do you think Chase gives an absolute rip about this at all? No.
Well, no, look, and here's why I don't know why Chase gave the company $3.2 billion unless they knew this
Right.
acquisition is coming. Because here's what I
Because
can tell
no
you from
bank
an
ever in the history of America bought toxic assets ever. Right?
well, but here's where it could work out for Citi, right, or a Chase in this
Chase, yeah.
way, is that this, even though it's an acquisition, could
Yeah.
literally end up putting Carvana out of business. And here's why: they're operating at a loss with their current model.
Correct.
And getting this, obviously they're continuing to wholesale used cars and stuff like that, which still has some operating costs, right? Because they're going to leave it Odessa's name. I keep wanting to say Odessa because that's a big town here in Texas, right? But that they're going to keep Odessa's name, right, and continue that model. But that means they take on all of those salaries, all of those take on costs. This could literally be one of those situations where they take on so much operation costs, they're already losing hundreds of millions. Last year alone, they operated at a loss of, I think it was $500 million, $462 million loss for the year. You take on more operation costs with debt, by the way.
Yeah. So the thing is, so Odessa's a profitable business, and it's not. It didn't. Odessa, and here's the thing for the audience that's listening: you've never heard of it, right? But it's a huge company. I think they're the second or third largest U.S. wholesale auction house in the country for cars.
But you bought them with a $2 billion loan.
So
you
that's the
have to
thing.
now pay that $2 billion back.
Right. So the three is 3.2. So the thing that will kill them is the debt service. It's not the actual operating cost of the business, because the business itself is profitable. The question is, can you extract enough profit through the vertical integration where you have closed the delta, you've closed a gap that is going to help you, that where here's this gap where you're spending money, so you can continue to afford to lose this much money. Now, are you going to close that gap so you can afford to now pay the debt service? So that's where this becomes a question. But it's not like any company. I mean, it's not like Lehman Brothers. You know, you was a huge bank. They could never. Well, they can service this huge amount of debt. That's not a big deal.
Is Odessa's profit enough to make up for what you say the debt service, right? The loan,
right?
The $3.2 billion loan, and the $500 million a year debt that Carvana's already running at.
Yeah.
And the answer to that question is, I would, if I was a betting man, which I am, not likely. Which is why I would not touch Carvana's stock with a 10-foot pole, because
Yeah.
it just as easily a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from
Right.
now be a brought to you by Carvana, brought to you by Chase Bank.
Yeah. Here's what I believe. The primary shareholder in this company is a felon. So already I like it a lot more, right? My interest in this story went from here because of car vending machines to the moon. Okay? It's out of the screen because guy's a felon, can't get a job anywhere. It says, I'm going to open 30 car vending machines with someone else's money. God bless America, people. God
Well,
bless America.
this, and look, here's again, this goes to me to the bad, and we've had a couple of these conversations here recently where it seems like the numbers don't add up, and so there's a general practice in the stock market called GAAP profitability, GAAP, General Accepted Accounting Principles, right?
Yeah.
And you'll have the reason they came up with this term, and the SEC came up with this term, is because there's the books that people show you, and then there's GAAP profitability.
Books,
basically, when if I can get my nose in your books and I can see what you're saying is true, then that's GAAP. If it's not, then it's not GAAP, right? So Carvana has
GAAP,
yet
it's cap.
it's yet to literally reach GAAP profitability, meaning they're not letting anybody in their books, right? They're saying this and that, and they're losing money. Here's the deal. Carvana sold in the fourth quarter of this past year 113,000 vehicles, just over 116 vehicles that generated $3.75 billion, right? Now, and that's a 57% growth over that same time the year before.
And they still lost money.
They still lost hundreds of millions of dollars. How do you make three in a used car market that is massive? It's through the roof right now. There's just not enough.
Right. There's not enough.
You've made $3.5 billion and you're still running hundreds of millions of dollars deficit.
In losses.
Somebody's not making the right decisions.
Right. So here's what I believe. I believe Carvana and CarMax and Vroom and a lot of these other companies. And I've actually done contract work for Carvana before. They have designed their business with the belief that, they're building an infrastructure because the next X amount of years, I'm going to say 5 years, they believe there's going to be a rollback in the franchise laws in most states because of Tesla saying we're a direct-to-consumer business, that they will be able to start selling new cars. And that ability to sell new cars changes their model, but they already have the infrastructure to ship it. So, they already have the buyers. They already have all this other stuff. So that's kind of where I think they're going.
And that may be true. However, you, have to get there, which takes profits to pay your people, which you've got to limp to get there, right? And two, you're also betting that actually happens. And if it doesn't, your entire theory falls apart. So this is a non-profitable business that just took out billions of dollars of debt to acquire a business that doesn't necessarily make them a profitable company.
Right.
And on top of that, you, me, and everybody else has questions about how it's not profitable with the revenues they're creating anyway.
Correct.
And they're not opening their books up to anybody.
And then you put all of that in one column, and then the next column you go to, hey, customers are saying that you haven't given them a title to the car that they bought from you. State AGs, attorneys general are now investigating Carvana because they were giving people who bought cars through Carvana, saying, hey, we're going to give you a temporary tag from Florida. And then when the temporary tag from Florida expired, we're going to give you a temporary tag from Georgia. And the guy took, okay, whatever. And then when that expired, here's a temporary tag from Arizona. And the guy's like, hey, I live in Louisiana. Can I just get a Louisiana title for my car?
Right.
So
Hey, look, you do what you want with your investment dollars. All we can do as market explainers lay it out for you, right, in the truth, and make it make
right.
sense for you and that kind of stuff. But this is where Carvana is at. Again, it is a huge
Hey,
deal.
I'm a gambling man. I love to gamble. And I love convicted felons because I think it's funny. I will be betting zero. I won't even buy a car from these people.
He's being 100% honest, folks. He does
Yeah.
love those things. Anyway, all right, what do we
Yeah.
got next, Danny?
I want to tell you about Big Man Gear. It's Big Man's merch brand. It's bigmangear.com. It's
Mm-hmm.
printed and shipped by Amazon Prime. Making purchases easy. Go check it out, bigmangear.com.
Amazon does not make that easy, by the way. The last 3 shirts that I've submitted, by the way, just to
Right.
all of you out there that are curious, have been denied by Amazon for whatever
Okay.
reasons.
But it's Amazon. It's Amazon. It's easy for the customer. Hard for you, easy for the
Yes,
customer.
that's right.